Goju Ryu is really a short history as martial arts go, because the name Goju Ryu was affixed to the martial art of Okinawa, which was originally called Tei, and was combined with a southern Shaolin form of karate, judging from what we can tell from the various kata and basic techniques. They were from the lion, the tiger, various animals. Crane is one of the prominent ones, and these were taken to Okinawa by Okinawans who trained in China to learn from the various masters in those arts, to see what they could develop as a martial art that they could use and rely on. And the reason I say it's relatively new is because everyone in Okinawa who had that sort of training with the Chinese, basically, they started teaching something that was really a hybrid. And so there wasn't anything solid until much, much later, actually, in the 20th century. And the Goju Ryu got its name because Miyagi Sensei, the founder of Goju Ryu, sent as his representative to Tokyo his #1 student, and Jinin Shinzato was his name, and he went there and performed Sanchin Kata and others, and everybody wanted to know what it was. And so they asked him, and he, of course, didn't know. It was just Nahate, Naha being the city where they lived, where Miyagi Sensei lived, and Tei meaning fist, which was the name that they gave to the indigenous fighting art, empty hand fighting art of Okinawa. So when he came back and he asked Miyagi Sensei, what is it that we're learning? What are you teaching us? And he thought for a while, and he asked for some time to think about it. And then, as he did, he came up with Goju. Goju means hard and soft. It also means 5 and 10, comically. But his idea of Goju for the hard and the soft was the act of breathing in and breathing out. And so that's why the Sanchin Kata, our breathing kata, which are called the Heishu Kata, Sanchin, there are 2 versions of Sanchin, one Tensho, and they are all the breathing, the Sanchin being the go or hard, and the Tensho being the soft. And although it is not soft, the soft does not mean soft as in soft as a pillow. Instead, it means the utilization of gentle breathing and circular soft techniques to effect a self-defense method against hard techniques. So it could very well have been named anything else, but it seemed to me that Miyagi Sensei chose that because it was something that was instilled in him in his training when he was learning the art that came directly to him from southern China through Higono Kanryo Sensei. And he spent several years, nobody knows exactly how many. Our history book says 14. I've heard as many as 20. My own calculations through my own investigation shows me that maybe 4, and very maximum 7, but more than likely 4 is the number of years he spent there, which is probably adequate for what he needed to learn. So when he returned to Okinawa with what he had learned, the things that he taught were exactly what he learned there, including other things such as health tactics, diet, certain kind of medical bone setting, for example, and things of that nature that would be, necessary to have a complete martial arts system. But actually, what he did was he taught what came from the Chinese form called Sing, and he developed the kata, which means form in Japanese, and he taught 4 of them: Sanchin, Sanseru, Seisan, and Superempe. Those are the only ones that he taught. The other kata were developed from other people who had gone, other Okinawans who had gone to China, and from some Chinese who had gone to Okinawa. And they had opened up an intercourse between Okinawa and China because the Japanese and the Chinese were always at war. And so in order for the Japanese to benefit from the Chinese artisans and so forth and their raw materials, they simply annexed Okinawa in the mid-1700s, and then the Japanese forbade them to have weapons, and that's how the empty hand martial arts began. But they were usually named for the city they were in. So Naha-te would be in the city of Naha, Shuri-te in Shuri, which is like that, and close to, same sharing one border of Shuri and Naha, and Tomari-te, which is further north. But they named them because they didn't know what else. It's more or less like naming Bakersfield High School. And so for, that's the way that the bulk of the material got to Okinawa. After that, it was a matter of the great masters, because there was no rivalry, the great masters sharing things with one another, and Okinawa being a small place, especially the main island, it made it easy to cross-reference, and they trained together all the time. They formed associations together. Some failed, some didn't, but it's like anything else. You can only go so far with the liberal sharing of ideas and concepts and material that's being taught until something somewhere goes wrong, and then there's a split. So whenever you get a schism like that, then one style is going to be like this, and one style is going to be like that. For example, what we call our sister style of Goju Ryu is Uechi-ryu. And they came from the same basic source. All of these, or most all of them, came from the southern China province of Fujian, Fujian. So the idea of talking about purity when it comes to martial arts is almost ludicrous, because if you really get down to the bottom line, the mother of all fighting systems is ancient, because man has always been at war with himself. And so it just depends on where it was written, and wherever the various things that were written about and talked of as styles, whenever you found that, it was always the one who wrote it. And that's why you always hear me saying history is just his story. Oh, well, first of all, it's like the branches of a tree. They branch off in various ways, in varying strengths and weaknesses, and there are both in the Goju system. Without going into each one, which would involve talking of hundreds of people, but talking about the direct line from Miyagi Sensei, who is the founder of Goju Ryu, and his students. His number one student was killed in the war, and so he was the likely heir, the presumed heir to the Goju system. But he didn't name an heir at the end. When he died finally, he didn't name an heir, but his son, just as a matter of fact, 2 or 3 years ago, was declared, he declared himself perhaps, I don't know really, but I have a book about it all now, and that he's the only legitimate heir, but he was probably not nearly one of the great practitioners. If we don't know anything about his training. But the bottom line is that the family of Miyagi Sensei when Sensei passed, the family decided that there should be a dojo developed in his name so he could continue the the style that they thought was as pure a style as there could be, and they did a good job for a while. And the way what they did essentially is they got together, certain of the masters got together and developed what was called the Jundokan, which still exists today. I've been in there. We took a contingency in there to look at it just on a trip for the World Championships in Okinawa. I think it was in '91, and you can just feel the history in it. It's really interesting. But at any rate, the one who was there was a direct student. The one who was in charge at that time was a direct student of Miyagi Sensei, but so were several others, some of whom trained there. And one of them was Kanyo Higaonna Sensei, who was his teacher, Miyagi Sensei's teacher. And then Miyagi Sensei, and he had other students, Kyoda Sensei, for example, but Miyagi Sensei had many more students than that. And the one who carried it and claimed the leadership of the Goju system wasn't part of the Jundokan. And so nobody knows the legitimacy of any of the people who claim to be heirs, but there were at least 4 or 5 of them who could have claimed it. But the one running the dojo that was developed, that is the Jundokan, for the legacy of Miyagi Sensei was probably the one that most people follow. But it doesn't mean that it's actually true. And his student was the student of my teacher. My teacher, Higaonna Sensei, Higaonna Morio Sensei, trained in the Jundokan, and he was probably the most sterling student. And some say he was the epitome of a Goju person, and that he was at one time even declared the most feared man in the world. I think all of this is hyperbole, and I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference how potent he is or was. He's still alive, of course, but he, I know I felt his might and his power and his charisma, and there is something special about the man. But when you talk about lineage, you and the students of OGRKK are 4th in line from Miyagi Sensei. And that doesn't mean a whole lot either, because there are a lot of other people who could say they're 3rd, 4th, and 5th in line from the other branches. I think we should be content to say that we're practicing as best we can the style that Miyagi Sensei intended Goju to be. And that at least is my challenge. And some people think that I'm crazy and that I should be doing some things differently. But I made a pledge, and I said that I would be doing the very best I could to cover everything I knew to be of Miyagi Sensei. The only thing I've done for myself is once you reach a certain seniority and rank, you're expected to contribute to the style. So that's why I've developed a couple of kata and hundreds, maybe thousands of drills, and that's my contribution. But the basic core material is the same thing that Higaonna Sensei taught me. And coincidentally, before I went to the Okinawan Goju, I was in the Japanese Goju for years, and I was training under Yamaguchi Sensei, who is the elder son of the cat, Gogen Yamaguchi Sensei, who is Miyagi Sensei's representative in Japan. And the Okinawans don't think they're part of Japan. They are, but they don't like the martial arts people, at least. And so he was his representative, and he was a higher ranking man In other styles, he was quite a charismatic character himself. My feeling is Miyagi-sensei, because he was fortunate to have never had a job, didn't have to have a job, wealthy family, and all he had to do was travel the world and learn the things that he learned and pass on the things that he learned. And he went to Hawaii. He spent a whole lot of time doing nothing but martial arts, doing nothing but karate. He did other martial arts as well, but Goju Ryu was his love and his life, and nothing ever interfered with it, except the Second World War. It's a convoluted story, but I was a competitive weightlifter for years. I started lifting weights in 1952, and I was enamored with Olympic lifting, and so I did play football in high school and college, and I liked the weightlifting because it was something that I could do. Whatever I did was me, and any advice, of course, that I could get. But whatever I did was strictly according to my efforts and my diligence, and that's the way I wanted it to be. And I didn't realize that. That's why I don't think I was that good a football player. I just didn't seem to be a team player. Not that I was disrespectful of it or had any disdain for it. It's not it at all. But it seemed like the individual sports were more my cup of tea. So I would gain weight. And at the time, they only had heavyweight and middle heavyweight, 198.25 pounds for middle heavyweight, which is where I lifted mostly. And then heavyweight was anything higher than that. Now they've got, I think, 2 or 3 weight divisions higher than that. And I always yearned for a 225 division, but it didn't come about in time for me to take advantage of it, because I think that's where I was at my very best, at around 220, 225. Anyway, in this process of losing and gaining weight so I could lift in 2 or 3 different divisions, I found that I had to have something to lose weight. So I played volleyball, got myself on a volleyball team, and we were a traveling team, and I could really sweat off the pounds, and that's what I did for several years. And I moved to Albuquerque from El Paso, where I started my weight training and where I went to school. And I actually wanted to go up in the heavyweight division again, because there was some guy that I just wanted to compete against. He became a professional wrestler, a football player, and a variety of other things. An Olympic lifter in the Olympics. He was that good. But at any rate, I gained up to about, maybe 230 something, and lifted in the contest, and came back, and immediately afterward I was invited to another contest. A month later I had to do something. And I was talking with the owner of the gym I was training in, and he said, well, why don't you go and talk to that guy over there? And okay, I don't know why, but I will. And I did, and his name was Bob Ricevich, and he was a Shorin-ryu stylist, and that's an Okinawan style. And I said, do you think I could train with you in your class? He was offering a class at the gym, and lose weight. And he said, I guarantee it. Well, what he called it was not karate, it was a dirty fighting class. So I signed up for it, and I liked it. And we were punching, kicking, doing all those things, and didn't wear gi or anything. We just were in street clothes or sweats. And a friend of mine and I liked it so much, we decided to sign up again. So we took another 10 weeks of it. And during that time, he was being transferred. He's a Railway Express agent, and he was being transferred to various jobs. And when he would leave town, he would ask me if I would teach the class. And I did, of course. And he, didn't charge me. And so it was mutually good for both of us. And at that time, there's something that I felt was missing. So when he came back on his last trip out, he said that he was going to be gone. And I said, well, would you teach us the real art? And I was talking for my friend tonight. He said, yeah, if you'll stay after class. We only had a couple more weeks. So he started teaching us Shorin Ryu. And then when it was time for him to leave, he hooked us up with a guy who was at the University of New Mexico. He was a student there, and he'd just come back from Japan, an American named Steve Clapper. And he said that he's probably going to be the closest thing to a clean martial art you can find. I don't know why he went that route, but he did, and I don't think it makes any difference to me. But the head of the United States Karate Alliance, who just last week died, had his school there too. But there must have been a falling out because they were of the same style, had the same teacher. So I don't know exactly what happened, but at any rate, we went the Shotokan route. Then I got to where I was teaching the Shotokan classes there, and I had a dojo. And all of a sudden, some guy named Wesley Anderson came here, went to Albuquerque, and he was from here, principal at the new West High. It was new then. He went to Albuquerque, and this friend of mine who was from Bakersfield said, go talk to the man, go talk to the man. I said, I can't leave the dojo. He said, well, I'll supply the students if you'll go and in the place and everything. I said, we'll start a dojo in Bakersfield. Well, I wasn't going to do it, but I did because I told him I would. I went to the interview, and he hit me between the eyes because afterward, the interview was really not an interview. He thought I was late. And I produced my little ticket that gave me the time, and then he admitted that he was in error. But at any rate, he asked me a few questions, not very many. And the next week I got an offer, and the offer was to teach English at North High School, and I would be making a little over $5,000 a year more. Well, that was in 1966. That was a good chunk of change, and so I bit the bullet, showed up here, and then next thing you know, another long story, but some people who were in Goju Ryu, Japanese Goju Ryu, one had been in Okinawa and studied Okinawan Goju Ryu, the other went to Japan and studied Japanese Goju Ryu, and then Yamaguchi Sensei was in San Francisco, the son of the cat, and they asked me if I would join them, and I said, I don't know, because I had a dojo, I had students. And so I decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I better talk to Yamaguchi Sensei. So I went to San Francisco and I talked with him. And we got acquainted and got to be fairly close over the years. But he said that he would accept me as a student. I'd start over in rank, and I did. But the promotions went pretty fast. I only had 2 gradings before I went for black belt. And then all of a sudden, I find myself in the Japanese Goju Kai. They call it the Goju Kai. And I taught for years there. And then after shedding the 2 partners that I had because of certain differences that we had, philosophical differences more than anything else. And I opened up my own place with no partners, and that's the way it's been ever since. And I've had probably 7 or 8 dojo locations in this town, and the very first one was just 2.5 blocks up Columbus Street from here, where we are now. Well, there shouldn't be any difference because they were all under Miyagi, but the difference is that the Japanese Goju has a different flair. Their kata are a little bit different, but they do the same kata. They have an additional 10 kata that they do. They call them the taikyokus, and there's Jodan, Chudan, Geidan, Taikyoku, Ich, and Ni. So and then they have the Ich and Ni Kakeuke and Ich and Ni Mawashiyuke. So that makes 10 kata, and they deliver the basic techniques in limited number. So there's a block and a punch, a block and a punch. Then the more advanced ones, there's a block or a combination of blocks and combination of punches, and then kicks and punches. So it's just a matter of giving you a way to put into a kata format basics. And I think that was good. That's one of the things I think that I don't do anymore. Occasionally I do it just for fun. But I sometimes like to teach that, and it doesn't do any harm. It doesn't violate the core material, because he also did the core material that Miyagi-sensei decided was going to be the core material. And the kata the same. But over the years things change, because people change, and they don't know if they change. They don't think they change in a lot of cases, but they do. And in order for me not to change, I always have to refer to the tapes and the books and the discs that are of my teacher, so I can see what he taught me, and then I recall. And if I see something in one of the devices of the book, for example, and I would ask him about it, and he would say, "Oh, yeah, that's what it looks like in the book, but that's not it," and he'll tell me exactly what it is. So I make a note. Then about 25 years ago, he had a World Chief Instructors Gashaku, and we spent, I think it was 4 days training and teaching and standardizing, and he gave us a list of things that weren't in the book or the tapes that were the changes to make it more accurate. But that's just the way it was taught then. There are things that you can change in a kata, but there are things that you can't change in a kata. The things that you can't change are the basic techniques. You can't change the order of the techniques in any kata, and you can't change the stances. But everyone has his own style. And so you have a very solid, strong, powerful style, and say a less muscular person with less intensity may look very good and do everything correctly, but there will be something that you say is yours and it's not his, and he has something he can say is his and not yours. In other words, we're not intended to make automatons out of people. Instead, we're to give them the basic principles of solid Goju Karate, and let them work everything within that frame of reference, and then whatever else they want to do, as long as it doesn't violate the principles, is fine. The kata, by the way, to clarify something that I made, they turned out to be pretty good ones, I guess, because our daughter Tracy's been winning world championships with it for quite a while now, but that doesn't mean a whole lot in itself. It cannot ever be a part of Goju Ryu. It's just my contribution to the art in general. So it won't be on a test, and the only way it could ever be accepted is if Higaonna Sensei, my sensei, wanted to include it, and he could add it. But he won't, because I am his student, but we are not in his organization any longer. That's what the OGRKK was formed quite a while ago, and at the insistence of my senior students from all over the country, and and actually it was not a parting of the ways from student me to sensei. Instead, it was just a movement out of that organization. And one of the reasons is there was too much for me to do, and I couldn't leave Bakersfield. And I was going to be sent traveling to organize tournaments and things of that nature, and to get Goju, examine dojo throughout the country, and to make sure that they were teaching the Goju the way it should have been taught. I'm almost certain it's changed. The economics and the purpose if you start a dojo and your purpose is to make money above anything else, you're either going to change or fail. If your purpose is to continue the art and teach the art the way you learned it and not waver, no matter what the pressure, mixed martial arts, full contact things, all those other things that have crept into the martial arts in general. If you're going to give in to those things, then you may not be failing business-wise, but you'll be failing the system. You'll be failing your teachers. I have students that I've dismissed because they try to change the style, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a free country, and you're free to succeed, you're free to fail, and you're free to stay true to your art, or you're allowed to abandon it. It's a free country. You do what you want.
Where are we at time-wise?
3 minutes.
Okay, I have a few more questions, but let me take another session with you. Is that okay?
Sure.
And we can cut it right here?
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.